Well, Happy New Year, everyone. Hey, it's Greg Stanley. I'm welcoming you to a new 2026. I appreciate all of you being here with me. I know I just had a podcast come out on New Year's Day. I apologize for not saying Happy New Year's, but I had recorded it a little while earlier. So, I just don't always remember when these things are coming out. So, this one I know is coming out just after the new year. So, hopefully, all of you had a good 2025 and you're looking forward to a great 2026. Now, I will tell you my 2025, if you follow me online, my newsletter, travels, at car shows, it probably seemed like quite a stellar year, but it was a really, really rough year. If you don't know, a car specialist job is really, really difficult. And honestly, I got kicked in the gut a lot in 2025. So if you're ever hanging out with me at, maybe at Cavallino at one of the restaurants or bars or something, ask me about it. I'll give you some fun little insights that were actually kind of painful for 2025. So I'm hoping 2026, I'm sure it will be a much better year. And it's already started off great. As you know, based on last week's podcast episode, I have the Enthusiast Guide to Collector Cars coming out May 1st. And a lot of you have already ordered the book. Thank you for that. As a reminder, it's not coming out till May 1st. But if you would like to explore possibly sponsoring the book or my podcast, just shoot me a note, Greg at thecollectorcarpodcast.com. It's really cool. The book I think has 55 really influential automotive experts from Jay Leno to Supercar Blondie to Wayne Carini. All sorts of folks participated by providing some insights for the book. So it's going to get really incredible distribution. At the back of the book, I'm going to have some full-page ads that align with collector cars, classic cars, luxury brands, and such. And as I talk about sponsorship, let me go into some stats. I really haven't shared this on the podcast before, but from a new newsletter perspective, I have over 4,000 people subscribed to my newsletter and a 50% open rate, which based on industry standards, it sounds like that is absolutely incredible. Most of them are 8 to 10%, something like that. Now on the YouTube channel, almost 240,000 followers. And what's really interesting about that, and I haven't quite figured out the math on it yet, but if you look at 2025 in its entirety, I averaged about 30,000 downloads/views. But what's interesting, if you look at the last 10 episodes, that's up to 97,000 downloads and views. So I'm not quite sure why it more than tripled in the most recent 10 weeks, but I'm happy to have it. And as always, I put the commercials early in the podcast episode to make sure my sponsors are represented before people tune out. So just some fun stats as it relates to the podcast. And as always, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, thanks for reading, and let's move on to the episode. Imagine a journey so rare it only happened once. That's the spirit behind Once. Exclusive, one-time only adventures that will never be repeated. Our next experience, American Muscle Legends, takes you trackside with the most iconic cars in history, complemented by luxury accommodations and behind-the-scenes access you simply can't buy. Spots are limited. When it's gone, it's gone. You can learn more at discoveronce.com/muscle. Well, welcome to the Collector Car Podcast. And if you've listened to me for a while or you're on my newsletter blast, you'll know that I am a stickler for documentation of classic cars. And I have someone here that I met at Amelia Island, and I just thought this would be a wonderful guest for the podcast. So I'd like to welcome Nick Hartnack. How you doing, buddy?
Hi, Greg. Thank you very, very much for inviting me on. I really appreciate it.
Now, you have a British accent, so where are you right now?
We're in rural Devon, which is southwest England. In fact, given that Formula One's just happened, if anyone happens to be a Formula One fanatic, Lando Norris comes from about 40 miles, just a little bit southeast of where we are. So there's Cornwall, Devon, Somerset, Bristol, blah, and then the rest of the country. So we're in rural England, basically. That's where we are.
So you guys
on a cold,
buddies?
wet day.
Are you guys buddies?
No. Do you know what? The only connection, there is this is tenuous, and it's so tenuous, but he's the same age as my youngest daughter. And the school he went to was a sports school called Millfield. And basically, a couple of her classmates from kindergarten were very sporty, and they went on to Millfield. So they would have shared a class, but according to reports, he wasn't he wasn't very athletic. But yeah, that's about as that's just tenuous, a slight connection. That's it. I'm leaving that conversation alone now.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. Well, I really wanted you on the podcast because you make a product, you have a service for car collectors. I thought was really, really cool. So, if you would tell us a little bit about your business, but not just the car aspect of it, because you do a lot of other stuff outside of the car aspect, but how, automobiles became a facet of your business, I guess. I'm assuming you're a car guy, but yeah, just go over what you do and how it started and how it got into the car world.
Okay, we yes, I'm a car guy. Have been well, they just fascinated me. I think it's just the shapes. It's cars have always fascinated me. At school parties, I was the kid by the front door looking to see what child pitched up in what car. That's just been my thing. But nothing to do with how we got into this. We got into it by mistake, really, not by mistake, but we just happened to get into it in the sense that we were in the furniture business for a large part of our lives, and then in the 2000s we basically sold up our furniture business because the model had changed, the internet had arrived, and we were basically designers and wholesalers. And we'd done well out of it, so we cashed in our chips and left the casino. And we didn't really have anything to do. We were looking for things to get into. And our youngest daughter is one of these ones that kids that did everything. And she was collecting all these certificates. And my wife wanted to keep them in one place. And
What kind of certificates are you talking about?
oh, they were just basically, so she's everything that I basically wasn't. She's exceptionally bright. She's exceptionally sporty. She's musically fantastic. She can act. She's all of these things. And really, each time you got into a level of doing something, we'd get a certificate. And there was one particular acting certificate she needed to move on to the next stage of Shakespeare or whatever it was, so that we had to have that, had the number on it, then we could apply for the next exam. And my wife was looking for the certificate in her room. She shouldn't have known better. She shouldn't have kept them in there, but she did. And her room was just like a bomb site. And my wife, out of frustration, said, "Oh, this is Jackie." Said, "Oh, we should just. If I had a binder, I could just with her name on it. I could just keep everything in there, and life would be so much easier." Anyway, she couldn't find a binder, personalized binder, one that she liked. So she's very talented, is my wife, and so she decided to make one. And she happened to be telling people, at the school that what she had done. They went, "Oh, we'd like one of those as well." And then before we knew it, we were getting requests for these certificate binders, achievement binders for children. And people who I happen to meet go, "Oh, you're not in furniture anymore. What are you doing?" I said, "Well, Jackie's making these personalized sort of bespoke binders." And before we knew it, we were sort of making binders for all sorts of people. At the same time, I had been looking at cars, and there was one particular car. I'd always wanted a '67 Mustang because that's the year of my birth, and I think it's one of the prettiest. And I was at a show, and there was a guy with this completely rebuilt, beautiful '67 Mustang, and he showed me his documents and the album, of the restoration. And I took one look at this file, and it was basically, it was just a very bog standard supermarket file. It had everything in there, and it had '67 Mustang written on the spine. And I just thought, no, 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 no. You cannot have this beautifully restored car and all this documentation and then just have a binder that looks so ordinary. You need something special. You need something nice. And then as I went around the show at the National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham, I was just struck by how you had all these wonderful, fantastic cars, because all the car clubs are there. And yet those people had a history, had their histories there. They were in these, Walmart binders, basically. Nothing special. And I just thought, no, you can't have anything as beautiful as what you've got, and then show us your documentation, show us the history and the restoration, and have standard, photograph album and a standard binder. It's got to be as beautiful as the car. So I just sort of made a note in my head that one day, I never bought the Mustang, by the way. That one day, if I happened to, had the opportunity, I would make for somebody a bespoke binder. Anyway, met somebody and I said, what you need something special to put your paperwork in. And he went, of course I do. But where do I get one? I said, we'll make one for you. And that's where it started. And we first started with an Etsy shop, put the photographs on Etsy, and then, slowly but surely along with everything else you were selling, the pilot log books and everything else, we started to sort of make sort of binders for people with not even classic cars, current cars. And what we do is everything we make is bespoke. So there's nothing off the shelf. So people will say to us, well, I wanted this color like this big, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what we'd make for people. And that's kind of how it started. So yeah.
Yeah, so you gave me a lot there. First off, when you think of bespoke binders, I must say your prices are extremely reasonable. I looked at a couple of them online, and we're talking custom, and I might not even be getting, I just picked one or two, and it was like $300. I'm like, that seems very incredibly reasonable. And that was just one of the ones I just happened to pick on, because going back to the Mustang, I got to ask, because I'm a Mustang guy. My first car was a 68 coupe. What color was the Mustang, and was it a coupe, convertible, or fastback?
It was coupe, because that's what I wanted. Sorry, fastback at least. And it was white.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I had a 66 dark green A-code convertible 4-speed. I bought it from the woman who bought it in 1967 when her dad bought it for her 16th birthday. And what was fascinating about the car is that it was originally a fleet car for the Henry Ford or the Dearborn. It was for the hospital. So surgeons had a fleet car program back in the day where they would get a free car. And what was interesting is they actually had a repair shop on site, and like you could get it at full service station, all that kind of stuff. A year later, they had a used car lot. And so she went there to get this used car, 1-year-old. And it was an amazing car. I had 17 options for a 66 Mustang convertible. I should have never sold it. And so there was a red car, a red Mustang convertible. She said, it's too flashy. That's not me. So she bought this dark green one. Well, I ended up, fast forward when I'm trying to buy a car. This is probably 8 years ago or so. I ended up buying it from her grandson. And there was so much cool stuff about the car, and I was so into the car and into the documenting of the her. I took pictures of every single body stamping date code and decoded it, and I put it in my binder. I went to her retirement home. She was 87 years old, and I interviewed her, and I took a picture of her, and I put that in my binder, and I did all this kind of stuff. So what you're offering really speaks to me now. The downside is nobody offered your services at the time. It's not that I could find. So I went to Office Depot and I bought leather bound, because I wanted it to be nice.
Okay, yeah.
I bought a leather bound Franklin planner, and that's one of the planners here for your monthly chores and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and I took out everything on the inside of it, and I put it all together. And I think I still have it, because when I sold the car, I thought I put it in the trunk, and I never did. So I need to mail it to the current owner of the car, because it's just so much information and so cool.
Oh, yeah.
And when you have that kind of documentation, you don't want to lose it. You want to present it in a way that it can be shared, right?
Absolutely. My sort of my spiel, if you like, or my passion is this. Yes, you have this beautiful car, and the history inside it should, the history you have should be contained in something, I feel, that's bespoke, that's something special. And the reason for that is that, you might keep your history in, where you are now in your office or your den or what have you. And, you might turn to the right or to the left, and you want to be able to look on that bookcase, and there is the binder or binders or books or whatever it is to that car. And you want to be able to look at it and smile a bit and kind of go, yeah, that's my car. So you want to have a degree of joy in the fact that you have something, your history isn't something that's special and bespoke to your car. But the other side of it is, and then everyone says, "Oh, I'll never sell it. I'll never sell it." But let's say one day someone on your behalf has to sell that car, and and then it comes to that stage of the history comes out, and the history is presented in these binders, boxes, or whatever it is you commission from us, and it's bespoke. It's got the Ford logo, it's got the Mustang logo, it's got the VIN number, all the details on the cover. That binder or box will only ever go with that car. It's not a generic binder or box with Ford on it. It's bespoke to that car. And the new owner or the prospective owner or prospective buyer at auction or wherever gets presented with these binders or boxes. What does that say about you? What does that say about you, the past owner of that car? That just says this person loved this car. This person was absolutely fanatical about paperwork, so much so that they got a bespoke binder. The car looks beautiful, the paperwork looks beautiful. They clearly cherish this car. So I think it makes a statement about the owner as much as anything else. So yeah, that's how I basically feel about these things. Probably. It's crazy that I don't have a classic car. So, but if I did, that's how I'd feel about it.
Right. I totally agree. And I love the fact. So, for those of you who are audio only, I have some pictures on the YouTube channel here, but you know, you can get the binder in any color, the same color as your car. I noticed some of them have racing stripes, like martini racing stripes, if it's a Porsche, maybe. And it's truly bespoke. You have some of them that have the outline of the 911 GT3 Touring on the outside. I see a 308 Ferrari, which is very cool. And there's a lot of different versions. You can do a box set with 3 or 4 binders, depending on the needs of your car. I mean, it depends. Some of these guys have these restoration photos that are just laying around in a drawer. And what better way to share what a great job the restoration was done than by having
Yeah.
those original restoration pictures. So I can see in certain cases where you might need numerous binders to document, stuff like that. So, but kind of talk about some of the options here, because I've never seen a clamshell box before. That's pretty cool. And you can do everything from different tabs, different colors. I'm assuming can you get different exterior materials? Is it all leather? Is it something
Yeah.
else?
I mean, a lot of it comes from our customers themselves. They say, I want 3 binders, or I want 2 boxes where I'm going to keep all the loose stuff. And then I do a concourse. So what I want a thinner screw post binder where I can insert pages in and I can present. So a lot of what we make comes from them. I want a box. What do you suggest? I want a binder. What do you suggest? Or what's it going to be used for? What's going to be stored inside it? So a lot of the beginning work, although we make screw post binders, ring binders, and boxes, the size and everything else is pretty much, and the colors are determined by the customer. So particularly with cars, we'll get somebody who will send us a photograph of their car, and then we will and they might have a preference for leather. And then what we'll do is we'll send them out samples of the leathers that come closest to the color of the car, and then we'll take it from there. Or, in some of the ones that you mentioned, the Ferraris and what have you see on our website, and a few others, the Corvette as well. I know you're a Corvette guy. And then what the owner says is that, look, taking that 67 Corvette as an example, Adam Lovelace, who owned the car, said it's a 67 Corvette, and they're important because now you have to quote me if I'm wrong here, Greg, but the 67 Corvette, if I'm not mistaken, had a particular air intake that none of the other Corvettes had, or there was something particular
They
about
had a
the
couple things.
67
They
of the
had the
other
side vents that were specific to
side
67,
vents.
but they had the 67 Stinger hood scoop on the
Stinger
427.
hood scoop.
Yeah, Stinger hood scoop. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he wanted that. So on the Corvette one you see on our website, he wanted those 2 items. He wanted the side vents represented, and he wanted the Stinger scoop. So what we do is we would then say, okay, you send us a photograph of the Stinger scoop, and then we redrew the scoop, and then Jackie made through sort of cut a little window out of the side of the box, and she made the vents on the side. So A lot of
Oh,
the
that's cool.
time, it comes from our customer. There's also a Ferrari on their Ferrari box set. I can't see my sights. I'm going by memory. There's a Ferrari box set. I think it's a 50s Ferrari, and that has the Italian flag on the top of it. And there's certain elements you go, right, okay, we get sent a picture of a car. What are we going to do on that binder, particularly in the case of those Ferraris, where the owner said, here are my cars, here's the pictures of them, here's what I got to keep in them, make me something. And we go back and say, right, well, let's do a silhouette of the car because it's distinctive shape. Let's add elements of that particular car to the boxes. So it it often comes from the owner saying, I want something special. What can you do? And then we sort of come up with ideas and they go, right, go for it. And then before you know it, we're drawing silhouette. They're sending us the silhouette, the picture of the car. We draw a silhouette of it. We're finding badges and we're drawing badges and what have you. So yeah, we kind of, it's a little bit like speed. It just becomes a question of money after a while. It's like, well, how far do you really want us to go?
Like
So
anything
yeah,
else. Yeah.
it's like anything else. But we also do something. We also do sort of, we also do things just basic leather binders, like something like this, which is a cover of a binder we did for somebody. I think get that in shot, and that's Italian veg tanned leather. And then they sent us the design. This was done for a Pebble Beach concours car, actually. Jeremy Jackson sent that, Mr. Concours. This is one of his cars, and he wanted something to present at Pebble Beach. He sent us the design. We embossed it onto the cover, and it's our starter, our starter binder. But it did the job for Pebble Beach. So yeah, it's kind of horses for courses. We can do something very simple. We literally go to town, and we start to incorporate, we get car interiors sent to us. We did one car for a concours, a BMW that was in a Salon Privé, and the owner had the original leather from the seats. How he got it, I don't know. And we made the binders out of the leather and what have you, and we replicated the chrome of the car and the two-tone. So yeah, it's tell us what you want and we'll try our best to make it for you.
No, that's great. And one thing I do want to call out here, I did find the Corvette on your website. Very, very cool. But one thing I also want to call out to, I know I have a lot of restoration shops that listen to this podcast, and I love the presentation box for vehicle restoration. So I thought that was really, really smart because, a lot of these restoration shops, the very high end ones, they're dealing with, the high end clientele,
Yeah,
right? And everything that happens is done on a very high end basis. So to have something like this where you can take, maybe it's an Aston Martin DB5, and here's some color swatches. I mean, it's basically going into like the Ferrari dealership and customizing your steering wheel in the special room with the special leathers and all
yeah,
that kind of stuff. You can really set it up from a presentation standpoint that really makes your client feel special. Obviously, they're paying for that somewhere within the restoration cost, but
yeah,
it still is cool. It really makes them feel like that's that extra step, extra level of detail that would probably make them feel very comfortable as throughout the restoration process, obviously. So those are very cool as well.
yeah, 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 yeah. And we do have restoration shops that, where the client has basically spent a fortune on the car. They want something, they want to give a little present back to the client, of place that they can keep their. In fact, on our website, on the car page, there's a grey E-type, I say grey. I'm sorry, it's very untechnical color specification. A grey E-type, red interior, and that was a local restoration shop here in the UK. Had just completely finished doing up the E-type, and that was their gift to their client. Obviously, that this one had made money. Sometimes they don't.
Yep.
But
Yep.
yeah, and equally, it's just, yeah, it's the finishing, it's the finishing touch to the restoration. It's just, here you go, this beautiful car, and then you got something beautiful to keep all the photographs, all the paperwork in as well.
Yeah, so true. Well, tell us, what is your website so our listeners can learn more about what you offer here?
Okay, well, the website's like the name. It's Hartnack and Company, and we keep it www.hartnackandco.com, and it's sectioned out. So you initially hit the front page. You might have to sort of go down the middle, and then you'll find the car page. And equally, having said that, if you go up onto our gallery, you'll see a gallery of past work. That in itself also sections out into cars, and you might not want to see the restaurants we've done or the hotels we've done for, but you can click the card tab and it'll sort of or vehicles, and it'll show you all the work you've done to vehicles. By all means, please look at anything else, because you might be in another market where we can be making something for you. But yeah, so cars has its own page. And bear in mind that we're kind of limited a little bit by your budget or your imagination. The idea being that you want something a bit special. There's a third thing, and Greg, you might, it's concourses as well. We're doing more and more concourse cars as well. And you know better than I do because you're a judge, but it's when it comes to paperwork and how the paperwork gets presented.
Yeah.
Apparently, so we're told, you get what you get from a company like ours is something that's bespoke, and it just sort of adds. It kind of, it just adds to the extra, presentation of paperwork, basically.
Well, I'm glad
a bespoke box.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the other offerings, because I was looking on your website and you have everything from pilot log books to restaurants and
Yeah.
hotels to weddings, all sorts of cool stuff. The one that really caught my eye, and maybe you can shed some light on this, is the super yachts. And there's like 40
Yeah.
binders in one picture. I'm like, what could you possibly have on a super yacht that you need 40 binders for? But don't give away any client secrets, but
No,
I
no,
just
no,
thought
it's
that was
okay.
interesting.
Yeah, no. Well, it looks great on the bridge. Basically, you've got everything. They need logbooks. The engineers need logbooks. Every time they go into a port, it needs
Oh, true.
paperwork. And yeah, we do. We've just done one, and that was, I think, 60 boxes and binders, and that included absolutely everything. So yeah, there's bridge work, there's engineering work, there's interior work. But also we do things for, particularly for charter yachts, because of course the cabins need binders that explain the yacht. There's menus as well. Yeah, I think essentially, if you need something bespoke, a property, we used to do quite a lot of property. We still do quite a bit of property, and you want to, you're a developer and you want something that looks, you know, in your whatever you're presenting to your client, and you want a bespoke binder or a bespoke box. That's what we do as well. So in fact, probably cars are, out of all the markets, are ooh, a third, I'd say, of probably what we do for people.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay. Quite a bit.
yeah, yeah, it's just, yeah, restaurants, hotels, anything that's, it's anything that's out of the ordinary basically happens behind me. And it's
Yeah.
my wife who, I should also point out, it's my wife is the talent. It's definitely not me. I'm I'm just I'm just the marketing guy. She's the she's the she is the talent. It's not me.
Well, I do
She
want
does
to
all the
end.
making.
Yeah, I do want to end on cars, and all the links will be in my the description of this podcast. But I do want to end on cars, and I'm really curious. Let's end on a Mustang. Why the 1967 Mustang? Because you're in England, obviously famous Top Gear presenter Richard Hammond's also from England, and he also loves 67 Mustang. So,
Yeah.
what is it about the 67 Mustang that you really like?
Okay. It, I don't know if you're the same, but every car guy must have a certain thing about cars. And one of my things about cars is rear lights. I've always had a rear light thing.
Mm.
And yeah, 67 is the year of my birth. So I'm lucky in that regard. I think the it's just that little bit bigger than the 66. It hasn't got a bit fatter than the sort of the late 68, 69, 70s, although one of my first loves was the Mac 1.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and then, but the 67 just, it's the shape. It just looked beautiful. There's the bullet car, but there's just, that's my thing. That's always been my thing about cars, the shape. And that's, I've always had a thing about American cars. When I was a kid, Hawaii 5 was a program. And although they were sort of, they weren't necessarily great 60s cars, they were just American cars. And I've always had a thing about American cars. So yeah, I think my accent is Southern African as well as British, but I just feel America just made beautiful cars. We did a binder once last year for a Florida resident, and he had a Corvette, and he had a 59 Cadillac, I think it was, and it was just that time of when America was, it's just so expressive, so beautiful, just the fins, the everything else. America was just making beautiful cars, beautiful cars. So yeah, the 67, I think, out of all the Mustangs, it's just the shape of it's wonderful, and then the rear light cluster is great. So although I wouldn't say no to a 68.
So this picture, right, I'll overlay it. This picture right here is my parents' 69 Mach 1 the day they bought it in 69. And then they sold it when they had 3 kids. But I'll put that picture on
Yeah.
video here. But when did you first see a 67 Mustang? Do you remember that moment?
Yep, I do. I grew up in what was Rhodesia. So I was born here. I grew up in Rhodesia, and yeah, it was green. The dark green is not the technical name for it, I'm sure. And it was just beautiful. It was a fastback, and I fell in love. And yeah, it just, that shape is just fantastic. Yeah, and I've yet to own one. I stupidly, when I had the money, I bought a Ferrari 360, and then I bought a Porsche 911 Turbo, and then I sold that, and the money went into other things. And I've yet to buy my American muscle car. It'll happen. It will happen. In fact, the other car I really like, and that's the British side, is I think the Cobra is wonderful. I just, the idea of taking a small British sports car and Americanizing it is just. I do have a soft spot for Cobras, so yeah,
So
that's my other thing.
for my other listeners that like Cobras, be sure to subscribe, because in a few weeks, I don't know quite yet when, did a walking talking interview with Lynn Park, who has like 9 real Cobras and a bunch of other Cobras, and he actually visited Shelby in Venice, California, while he was building the Cobras in 63, 64, and he didn't buy his first one until 69, but that was quite an interview. So I'll be coming up in a couple of weeks. And then the other thing that's kind of sad is I did do a news blast a while ago where I chased a 67. I don't know if it's called dark moss green, Highland green, dark green 67 Mustang Fastback that I found when I was 12 years old at my grandmother's. And I went back 40 years later and I found the same car, and it had only deteriorated since then. And I'll overlay a picture here of the 2 pictures from 1983 and 2023. And he says he's restoring it, but I don't know that I buy that. So, I do know where there is one, but it's unfortunately not for sale right now, but maybe one day.
You know what's fascinating about something, you were talking about the car you had, the Mustang you had. It's what would it have been like back in 1967? It was a Mustang, and you received that car. I was looking at your podcast of the guy who had the car that had only had daily delivery mileage on it.
The Mustang Cobra
And
R, probably.
it was just, that was what that car looked like when it came off the factory floor. And you kind of think, if you were a new owner and you saw that, I mean, it must have been love, surely. Absolutely fantastic. For my sins, I used to have a Tesla because of the company car. And how do you fall in love with a Tesla? You can't.
Right.
Whereas some of the cars at that show you were in Chicago, they were just, oh God, they were beautiful. I mean, if you received that brand new, how could you not fall in love?
Oh, yeah, you're talking about that black Galaxy, I
Yes,
think. Yeah, it
the
had
black
12
Galaxy of
miles
the
on it.
Ford.
Yeah, Rick Schmidt.
Exactly.
Yeah, that thing was
That's
nice.
that's
Yeah.
fantastic. But all the cars there, I mean, they all just looked absolutely stunning. And there was shape, there was design, there was something about it. Whereas the modern car,
Yeah, doesn't get you excited. I appreciate you joining the Collect a Car podcast, and I'll definitely have to find you at one of these Concours events over here, and I need to join you over there one day.
Please do. We have some great events. So it might rain. So
That's okay.
that's Britain.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you very much. Cheers.